Welcome to the Jungle Stroll. Have you ever wished you had a user manual for the complex world of human connection? Well, today is your lucky day.
We are diving deep into Dale Carnegie's classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But this isn't just a book report. This is a modern masterclass designed to transform your career and your relationships. These ideas have been essential for nearly a century, and we're going to update them for today's world.
We're talking neuroscience, cognitive biases, and actionable steps you can use the second this podcast ends.
This is a complete journey, so get comfortable and don't go anywhere. This toolkit is so powerful, you'll want to hear every single tip.
Let's start with the foundation. Part 1 is all about the 3 fundamental techniques in handling people. Before you can connect, influence, or lead, you have to understand the human mind. Dale Carnegie realized most of us fail because we start in the wrong place. We start with what we want, what we think, and how we feel. But here's the secret: we aren't dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion. Creatures bristling with prejudice, motivated by pride and vanity. Mastering these first 3 techniques is the bedrock for everything else.
The first principle is simple but powerful. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. In other words, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Carnegie argues that finding fault is totally destructive. When you criticize someone, you don't inspire change. You just wound their pride, hurt their sense of importance, and create resentment. The person you're criticizing won't hear your logic. They will only feel the sting of the attack. Their brain instantly switches to self-preservation mode. They'll focus all their energy on justifying their actions, not correcting them.
So why is criticism so useless? It's all about our brain's wiring for survival. First, there's something called the amygdala hijack. Our brains treat social threats just like physical threats. So when you criticize someone, their brain registers it as an attack. This triggers the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, and floods the body with stress hormones. In this state, the logical part of our brain just shuts down. The person becomes physically incapable of hearing your feedback. They're in survival mode, and you are the threat. Then there's cognitive dissonance. We all see ourselves as good, confident people. Criticism creates a mental conflict between our actions and that positive self-image. To fix this discomfort, the brain usually chooses the easy path. It rejects the criticism to protect our ego. This is why arguing about who's right is pointless. You're not fighting their logic, you're fighting their brain's need to protect itself.
And what about the long-term cost? Even if criticism works in the short term, it creates a huge long-term problem. Studies show that constant criticism leads to anger, anxiety, and low self-esteem. The person will remember the emotional wound long after they've forgotten the lesson. You haven't solved a problem, you've created a new one, a damaged relationship. Let's see this in the workplace. Imagine a manager, Sarah, reviewing a report from her analyst, Tom. The report has errors. The criticism approach would be, Tom, this report is full of mistakes. Be more careful. What's Tom's reaction? Shame and defensiveness. He's not thinking, she's right. He's thinking, I was rushed. She's always so critical. He'll fix the errors, but his motivation and trust in Sarah have just plummeted.
Now for the Carnegie approach. Sarah knows criticism will only make Tom defensive. She invites him for a chat. She says, Tom, thanks for getting this report to me so quickly. I know you've been busy. I was looking at the analysis on page 5, and I came to a slightly different conclusion. Could you walk me through your thinking? Maybe together we can make it even stronger. See the difference? Tom doesn't feel attacked. He feels like a collaborator. At home, let's say Alex is frustrated that their partner, Jamie, leaves dishes in the sink. Instead of snapping, Alex waits until things are calm. Alex says, "Hey honey, I know you've had a long day. It would really help me feel more relaxed if we could get the kitchen cleared before bed. Is there anything I can do to help?" This acknowledges Jamie's reality and frames the task as a team goal. To do this yourself, use the pause, understand, reframe method. When you feel the urge to criticize, stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, why might a reasonable person have done this? Then, reframe your words from, "You did this wrong," to, "How can we make this better?"
If the first principle is what not to do, the second is what you must do. The big secret of dealing with people is to give honest and sincere appreciation. Carnegie says the deepest craving in human nature is the desire to be appreciated. It's a hunger that is rarely satisfied. Giving honest appreciation is the most powerful tool for motivating others and building loyalty. But there's a critical difference between appreciation and flattery. Flattery is insincere, shallow, and selfish. People can spot it a mile away, and it usually backfires. Appreciation, on the other hand, is genuine, unselfish, and specific. It comes from the heart.
The power of appreciation is rooted in our biology. Let's start with the neuroscience of reward. When we get genuine praise, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine is the motivation molecule that makes us feel pleasure. Serotonin is a mood stabilizer that makes us feel happy. When you appreciate someone, you are literally triggering a positive chemical reaction in their brain. It's the most effective positive reinforcement there is. It also addresses our needs in Maslow's hierarchy. Right above basic needs are the needs for belonging and esteem. Sincere appreciation feeds both. It tells someone you belong and you are valuable. Finally, this uses the Pygmalion effect. When you praise someone for a positive trait, you reinforce their identity as someone who has that trait. They are motivated to live up to that reputation you've given them. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Let's see how this works. In the workplace, a team just finished a grueling week. Vague praise is, "Good job, everyone." It's generic and has little impact. The sincere appreciation approach is specific. A manager says, "Maria, your attention to detail caught a huge error. That was a game changer." And Ben, "The way you managed the client's expectations was a masterclass in communication." Maria and Ben don't just feel good, they feel seen. Their specific contributions were recognized. Now for a relationship scenario. Maya cooks a special dinner for Liam. A passing acknowledgement is, "Thanks for dinner." Sincere appreciation is, "Wow, this is amazing. I know how exhausted you were, and the fact you still took the time to make my favorite meal, that means so much to me." This acknowledges the effort and sacrifice behind the action. It validates Maya as a caring partner, not just a cook.
Here's your mission for the next 24 hours. Find one chance to give someone sincere appreciation. But you can't use generic phrases like, "Good job." You have to follow the specificity rule, a 3-part formula. First, name the specific action. For example, when you stayed late to help me finish that presentation. Second, state the positive impact. It made me feel so supported and less stressed. Third, express gratitude. End with a simple, direct thank you. This formula transforms a generic compliment into a powerful moment of human connection. Try it. The response you get will be worth 1,000 good jobs.
The third principle is the secret to real influence. He who can do this has the whole world with him. The principle is to arouse in the other person an eager want. Carnegie says there's only one way to get anybody to do anything: make them want to do it. You can force someone, but that's temporary and creates resentment. Real cooperation comes from aligning what you want with what they desire. Carnegie used a great metaphor. When he went fishing, he didn't bait the hook with strawberries and cream, which he loved. He baited it with worms, because that's what the fish wanted. Yet in our daily interactions, We're always baiting our hooks with strawberries and cream. We talk about what we want. To be influential, you have to stop thinking about your wants and start thinking about theirs. You must frame your proposal as a solution to their problem.
This principle is a masterclass in applied psychology. First, it taps into intrinsic motivation. Psychologists say humans are motivated by autonomy, competence, and relatedness. When you give a direct order, you violate their need for autonomy. But when you arouse an eager want, the idea feels like it's their idea. They choose to act because it aligns with their own goals. Second, it relies on the empathy influence pathway. You can't arouse a want if you don't know what they want. This requires deep empathy and perspective taking. You have to genuinely put yourself in their shoes. Once you understand their world, you can frame your proposal as a compelling solution for them. This builds immediate rapport and trust. It also leverages reciprocity. By focusing on their needs first, you create goodwill, and they feel an urge to do something for you in return.
Let's see this in practice. A salesperson is selling project management software. The self-focused approach is to say, our software is the best. It has AI scheduling and advanced analytics. You should buy it. The client just thinks, so what? The pitch is about the product, not the problem. The eager one approach starts by asking questions. What are the biggest bottlenecks your team is facing? How much time is lost on admin tasks? After listening, the salesperson frames the pitch around the client's needs. It sounds like your team is frustrated with wasted time. What if you could automate that work and give your creative people back 10 hours a week? Now, the client isn't being sold. They're being offered a solution to their own problem. The desire to buy is aroused because it's linked to their desire to reduce frustration. In a leadership scenario, instead of ordering a team to use new software, a leader validates their frustrations with the old system. Then, she presents the new system as a solution to their problem, a way to eliminate duplicate work and save time. She has transformed a dreaded chore into an exciting opportunity.
So before you make your next request, stop and use the WIFT framework. WIFT, what's in it for them? First, ask, what is the other person's primary problem or goal? Second, how does my proposal directly help them solve that problem? Third, how can I phrase my request so the benefit to them is the first thing they hear? When you use this lens, you stop being a salesperson and start being a problem solver. You stop being a boss and start being a leader. These first three principles, don't criticize, give appreciation, and arouse a want, are all about managing the human ego. Think of the ego as an invisible shield. Criticism is a direct attack that raises the shield. Sincere appreciation is the key to lowering that shield. And arousing an eager want is what you do once that shield is down. You gain power by surrendering your own ego and focusing entirely on the other person's world.
Now for part 2, 6 ways to make people like you. This isn't about being popular. It's about understanding that people are more cooperative when they genuinely like and respect you. Principle 4 is to become genuinely interested in other people. Carnegie said you can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in others than in 2 years by trying to get others interested in you. The person who can break out of that bubble and show sincere interest in someone else is rare and magnetic. When you show genuine interest, you're sending a powerful message. You matter. You are important. Almost no one can resist the person who makes them feel that way.
The power of genuine interest is rooted in our psychology. First, it's the most direct path to empathy and connection. When you focus on understanding someone, you engage the empathy circuits in your brain. Social neuroscience shows that when we truly listen, our brain activity can start to synchronize with the speakers. This neural coupling is the biological basis of feeling on the same wavelength. Second, it satisfies the universal need to be seen and validated. In a world where we often feel invisible, having someone give us their undivided attention is incredibly validating. It affirms our existence and our worth. This is why a good listener is so often seen as a good conversationalist. Finally, it triggers the reciprocity principle. When you give someone the gift of your focused attention, they feel a subconscious desire to reciprocate. They become more interested in you in return.
Let's see how this works at a networking event. The self-interested approach is to walk up and launch into your elevator pitch. You become just another person asking for something. No connection is made. The genuinely interested approach requires a little research. You walk up and say, "Ms. Chun, I was so impressed by the keynote you gave last year. I'm curious, how has your thinking on that topic evolved?" You've shown you know who she is, you listened to her ideas, and you asked a thoughtful question about her interests. You are no longer a salesman. You are an interested peer. On a first date, instead of asking generic questions like, "What do you do?" ask story questions. Your profile said you're into hiking. What was the most memorable trail you've ever been on? This opens the door to a story, not just a fact. By digging deeper, you're not just learning what they do, you're learning who they are.
For the next week, try adopting the Sherlock Holmes mindset. Pretend every person you meet is the most interesting person in the world, holding a fascinating secret. Your job is to figure out what it is. First, assume expertise. Go into every interaction assuming this person is an expert in something you know nothing about. Your mission is to discover it. Second, ask story questions. Instead of asking questions that get a one-word answer, ask questions that invite a story. What's the most interesting challenge you've faced at your job recently? Third, listen for the spark. Pay attention to what makes their eyes light up. When you hit a topic they speak about with passion, double down. Follow their enthusiasm. When you do this, you'll find conversations become effortless and you'll become one of the most memorable people they know.
Principle 5 is the simplest, yet most profound, for making a great first impression. Smile. A smile costs nothing, but creates so much. It happens in a flash, but the memory of it can last forever. A genuine smile is a powerful messenger. It says, without words, "I like you. You make me happy. I am glad to see you." Think about how a dog reacts when it sees you, with pure joy. A genuine smile has the same effect on humans. It's a universal signal of warmth and safety that instantly lowers defenses. And this effect is powerful even when the smile is unseen. Telephone companies used to train operators to smile because it comes through in your tone of voice.
The power of a smile is backed by fascinating science. First, there's the facial feedback hypothesis. This theory suggests our facial expressions can directly influence our emotions. The connection is a two-way street. Not only do we smile when we're happy, but the physical act of smiling can make us feel happier. It can trigger the release of mood-boosting neurotransmitters. By forcing yourself to smile, you can actually improve your own mood. Second, smiles are neurologically contagious. When you see someone smile, mirror neurons in your brain fire up. These neurons mimic the actions we observe in others. When you smile at someone, they often feel a subconscious urge to smile back. This creates an instant, positive feedback loop. Finally, a smile is a powerful social signal of trust and approachability. Studies show that people who smile are perceived as more attractive, reliable, and sincere.
The applications for this are universal. Think of customer service. A frustrated customer approaches the desk. An agent with a neutral expression starts the interaction from a place of tension. But an agent who offers a genuine smile before the customer even speaks instantly de-escalates the situation. The smile says, "I'm here to help. We're on the same team." On a video call, many of us have a resting work face that can look angry or bored. This can stifle open communication. Instead, make a conscious effort to have a pleasant, gentle smile on your face, especially when others are speaking. It signals that you are engaged and receptive. So here's the 1-week smile challenge. For 7 days, make a conscious effort to smile more. Smile at the first person you see in the morning. Smile before you speak in every interaction. Notice the change in your own tone and the reaction you get from others.
Principle 6 is about remembering that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Of all the words that exist, your own name is the one most powerfully tied to your identity. Remembering and using a person's name is one of the simplest and most effective compliments you can pay them. It tells them they made an impression on you, that they are significant. Conversely, forgetting or mispronouncing a name sends a painful message: you are not important. This isn't just about good manners. It's about showing respect and building a genuine connection. Everyone, from the CEO to the janitor, appreciates the effort it takes for someone to remember their name.
Why is hearing our name so powerful? First, it triggers a unique neurological response. Brain imaging studies show that hearing our own name activates distinct areas of the brain. The response is different from when we hear other nouns. Some researchers think it can even trigger a small release of dopamine. It literally feels good to be personally acknowledged. Second, a name is the anchor of our personal identity. It represents our history, our family, and our entire sense of self. When someone uses our name correctly, they are validating that entire identity. They're signaling, I see you as a unique individual. This is profoundly important for our self-esteem. Finally, using names is crucial for building trust and intimacy. It makes a conversation feel more personal and less transactional. In a business context, it's the difference between being a generic vendor and a trusted partner.
Let's look at this in leadership. A new manager who struggles with names makes the team feel like interchangeable cogs in a machine. Morale and trust quickly erode. An attentive manager makes a deliberate effort to learn everyone's name in the first week. In meetings, they address people by name. Sarah, that's a great point. David, what are your thoughts? The team feels respected and individually recognized. At a social gathering, when you're introduced to Craig, you immediately repeat the name. Craig, it's great to meet you. Use it once or twice in the conversation. He'll walk away feeling he made a real connection. To learn this skill, use the RAC method: repeat, associate, connect. Repeat the name out loud. Associate the name with a feature, like Carol with the curly hair. Connect the name to a detail by writing it down later. Mastering this simple skill will set you apart.
Principle 7 is a natural extension of being interested in others. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. If you are truly interested, you will naturally become a good listener. The paradox is that the most interesting people are often those who are the most interested. The best conversationalists often listen more than they talk. Most people aren't looking for a brilliant orator. They are looking for a sympathetic, attentive audience. Being a good listener is one of the highest compliments we can pay another person. It tells them, what you have to say is important. You are worth my undivided attention. A great rule of thumb is to listen 75% of the time and talk only 25% of the time.
Active listening is a powerful psychological process. First, active listening builds trust and psychological safety. When we listen actively, making eye contact, nodding, not interrupting, we signal that we care. This creates a feeling of psychological safety, the foundation of trust. When people feel safe, they are more willing to be vulnerable and collaborate openly. Second, being heard is a core human need. The experience of being truly heard is deeply therapeutic. It allows the speaker to process their own thoughts and emotions. Often, just talking through a problem with an attentive listener is enough for the speaker to find their own solution. When you interrupt with advice, you rob them of this self-discovery. Third, listening activates brain synchronization and empathy. As we mentioned, when you actively listen, your brain activity can mirror the speaker's. On a neurological level, you're beginning to share the speaker's experience. This is why a good listener can make someone feel so profoundly understood.
Let's see the impact of good versus poor listening. An employee, David, tells his manager, Lisa, he's overwhelmed. A poor listener interrupts. Lisa says, I know, everyone is busy. Here's what you need to do. Lisa thinks she's been helpful, but David walks away feeling dismissed. His problem wasn't just time management, it was feeling unsupported. A good listener gives her full attention. Lisa says, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me more. She lets David talk for several minutes without interruption. When he's done, she paraphrases what she heard to confirm her understanding. David feels an immense sense of relief. He feels heard. Only now are they ready to solve the problem together. In a friendship, if your friend is going through a breakup, don't hijack the conversation with your own story. Just listen. Let them talk. Ask gentle questions like, what's the hardest part for you right now? You are providing a safe space, one of the most valuable gifts you can give.
For your next 3 important conversations, try to apply the 75-25 rule. Your goal is to listen for 75% of the conversation and talk for only 25%. This will force you to truly hear the other person. While you're doing this, practice 3 active listening techniques. 1. Maintain engaged body language. Put your phone away. Turn your body towards the speaker. Make eye contact. 2. Use minimal encouragers. Use simple, short phrases like, I see, go on, or tell me more. These encourage the speaker to continue without interrupting them. 3. Paraphrase for understanding. When the speaker pauses, summarize their point in your own words. Start with, so, what I'm hearing is. This confirms you're listening and gives them a chance to clarify. The rewards in trust and influence are immeasurable.
Principle 8 builds on the last 2. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. Once you've listened to someone, you'll discover what they care about. The next step is to talk about those things. Carnegie said the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things they treasure most. Theodore Roosevelt was a master at this. Before a visitor arrived, he would stay up late researching subjects he knew his guest was interested in. He knew the quickest way to build rapport was to demonstrate a shared interest in their world. Whether it's a colleague, your child, or a client, the conversation will always be more successful if it revolves around their passions, not yours.
Talking in terms of their interests is psychologically potent. First, it's the ultimate form of validation and respect. When you bring up a topic that's important to someone, you're nonverbally communicating, I have paid attention to you. I value your world. This makes the other person feel important and respected. Second, it allows the other person to operate in their zone of expertise and passion. Everyone loves to talk about what they know and love. When you steer the conversation to their favorite hobby or area of expertise, you give them a platform to shine. They become the expert in the conversation, which feels good. They will see you as a fascinating conversationalist, even if you've said very little. Third, it's the most effective way to gather information and find common ground. As they talk, they reveal more about their values and personality. This deepens your understanding and increases the chances of discovering a shared interest that can build a stronger relationship.
Let's see the difference this makes. You're meeting a potential client for lunch. The generic approach is to stick to boring small talk about the weather or sports. The conversation is forgettable. Their interests approach starts with 10 minutes of research. You see on their LinkedIn profile, they recently ran a marathon. You open with, I saw you just completed the city marathon. That's incredible. What was the training like? Immediately, the client's face lights up. You've hit on a passion. You've built an immediate, personal connection that has nothing to do with business. For a parent trying to connect with a quiet teenager, don't interrogate them about school. If they're obsessed with a video game, show interest in their world. Ask, hey, I saw you playing that new game. Who's the toughest boss you've had to fight? The teen is invited to talk about something they're an expert in. You are building a bridge of connection that wasn't there before.
Becoming an interest detective is a skill you can practice. First, be a digital detective before an interaction. Spend 5 minutes on reconnaissance. Check their LinkedIn profile for volunteer work, shared articles, or hobbies. Look for clues about their passions. Second, be a conversational detective during the conversation. Listen for passion keywords, topics they bring up more than once or discuss with more energy. When you hear one, circle back to it with a curious question. Third, create an interest file for the key people in your life. Keep a private note of their hobbies, their kids' names, their favorite teams. Reviewing this file before you interact with them allows you to naturally talk in terms of their interests, showing them you care enough to remember.
The final principle in this section brings us full circle. Make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. This isn't just about praising specific actions. It's about conveying a general sense of respect and value in all your interactions. Carnegie's advice is to live by the golden rule: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We all want to feel important. We all want our worth to be acknowledged. The path to connecting with others is to give them that feeling of importance freely and sincerely. This can be done in small ways, using polite phrases like, "I'm sorry to trouble you," or "thank you." It's about giving your undivided attention. It's about a fundamental attitude of respect that sees the inherent worth in every individual. And like all the principles, this must be done with absolute sincerity.
Making others feel important directly nourishes their self-esteem. First, it is a direct deposit into someone's self-esteem bank account. When we're treated with respect and our presence is acknowledged as significant, it reinforces a positive self-image. Research found that employees who felt valued were significantly more productive. Feeling valued creates a psychological buffer against stress. Second, it fosters healthier and more meaningful relationships. When you make someone feel important, you demonstrate respect, which often triggers a cycle of mutual appreciation. One study found that relationships with mutual appreciation had a 45% higher rate of satisfaction. You create an upward spiral of positivity. Finally, it cultivates a positive and growth-oriented mindset. When people feel appreciated and important, they are more likely to focus on their strengths. This fosters a growth mindset where people are more willing to embrace challenges because they feel psychologically secure.
Let's look at how to apply this. In an everyday service interaction, like at a coffee shop, don't just mumble your order while on your phone. Put your phone away. Look the barista in the eye, smile, and read their name tag. "Hi, Sarah. Could I please get a large latte?" When you get the coffee, say "Thank you so much, Sarah." In that moment, you've treated her as a human being, not a coffee-making machine. In a team meeting, if a junior member makes a suggestion, don't dismiss it. Even if the idea isn't viable, a great leader validates the act of contributing. Say, "Thank you for that suggestion, Mark. I appreciate you thinking creatively." This makes Mark feel valued and encourages a culture where everyone feels safe to share ideas. To practice this, conduct an importance audit for one day. Look for opportunities to make others feel important, especially those in junior or service roles. Use names, give undivided attention, and acknowledge the unseen work that people do.
Looking back, these 6 principles form a cohesive strategy for building social capital. It starts with a shift from a self-centered perspective to one of genuine curiosity about others. A smile is the universal greeting that signals you're open and friendly. Using a person's name is the key that unlocks their individual identity, making them feel significant. This foundation of respect naturally leads you to become a better listener. You create a space where others feel validated enough to share their stories. As you listen, You discover their passions, which allows you to talk in terms of their interests. All of these behaviors culminate in making the other person feel genuinely important. Together, these are not social hacks, they are the building blocks of authentic human connection.
Now we move to part 3, how to win people to your way of thinking. We've laid the foundation, built rapport, and now we move to the art of persuasion. This isn't about force or manipulation. It's about gentle, respectful, and psychologically astute guidance. These next principles are designed to help you win cooperation and resolve disagreements. This is where influence becomes an art form.
This next principle is one of Carnegie's most radical ideas. Principle 10. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. He states that you simply cannot win an argument. It's impossible. Because even if you win on a logical level, you have still lost. You have wounded their pride, made them feel inferior, and aroused their resentment. You may have won the point, but you have lost the goodwill. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Disagreements are inevitable, but arguments are optional. The key is to reframe disagreement not as a battle to be won, but as an opportunity for mutual understanding.
The futility of arguments is rooted in our psychology. First, arguments trigger the amygdala hijack we talked about earlier. When someone feels they're in an argument, their brain perceives a social threat. Their capacity for rational thought plummets. They are no longer interested in truth, they are interested in winning the fight. Second, arguments are fueled by confirmation bias. This is our tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs. In an argument, your brain isn't searching for truth, it's searching for evidence to support your side. Both people are doing this at the same time, which is why they talk past each other. But let's be clear, Carnegie advocates avoiding arguments, not disagreements. Healthy relationships require addressing disagreements. The key is to do it in a way that doesn't escalate into a destructive fight.
Let's see how this works. Two colleagues, Ben and Chloe, disagree on a marketing strategy. Ben favors a traditional ad campaign, while Chloe wants a new social media approach. The argument approach starts with an attack. Chloe, your idea is way too risky. Chloe feels attacked and argues back. Traditional ads are dinosaurs. The conversation escalates, voices are raised, and their working relationship is now strained. Now, the avoid the argument approach. Ben feels the urge to argue but instead seeks to understand. He says, Chloe, that's an interesting take. Help me understand your thinking. Chloe feels respected and explains her reasoning. Ben then says, I understand your perspective. My main concern is the budget risk. Is there a way we could combine our ideas? By avoiding a confrontation, Ben has transformed a potential argument into a collaborative problem-solving session. To practice this, use the DLT method, diffuse, listen, think. Diffuse the tension by welcoming the disagreement. Listen fully without interrupting. Thank them for sharing and suggest you both take time to think.
This principle is the practical application of avoiding arguments. Principle 11. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, you're wrong. The fastest way to start a fight is to tell someone they are wrong. When you say you're wrong, you're not just disagreeing with an idea. You are delivering a direct blow to their intelligence, their judgment, and their ego. It immediately puts them on the defensive. And you can tell people they're wrong with a look or a gesture just as easily as with words. This principle is about cultivating an attitude of intellectual humility. Instead of starting with a contradiction, start with an admission that you might be wrong and a willingness to examine the facts together.
The ineffectiveness of saying you're wrong is rooted in the psychology of ego. First, it creates an immediate ego threat. Our beliefs are deeply intertwined with our sense of self. When you attack a belief, you are implicitly attacking the person. The conversation becomes a status battle, and admitting they are wrong would feel like admitting defeat. Second, it completely ignores the other person's subjective reality. From a psychological standpoint, no one is ever wrong in their own mind. Their opinions are the logical result of their unique life experiences. A more effective approach is to be curious about why they hold that opinion. Third, it fosters a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. When you declare someone is wrong, there's no room for learning. But when you approach a disagreement with humility, saying something like, "I may be wrong. Let's examine the facts," you are modeling a growth mindset. You're framing the conversation as a collaborative search for the truth.
Let's see this principle in a technical debate. An engineer, Maria, believes her colleague Sam's technical solution is flawed. The "you're wrong" approach, Maria says, "You're wrong about that approach. It's a bad design." Sam is immediately defensive and embarrassed. The meeting becomes a tense debate about who is smarter. The respectful approach, Maria says, "Thanks for walking us through that, Sam. I see the elegance in your design. I have a concern about server load, but I may be missing something. Could you walk me through your assumptions?" This approach validates Sam's work, expresses the concern as her own, and invites a collaborative discussion. Sam is now open to discussing the issue because his ego is not under attack. To do this yourself, arm yourself with a few diplomat's phrases. Instead of "you're wrong," try, "I see it a little differently," or "I might be wrong, but my understanding was." Practice these. They will allow you to challenge ideas without challenging people.
This principle is the flip side of the previous one. Principle 12. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. If we expect others to be open to being wrong, we must be willing to do the same. And when we are wrong, we should admit it immediately and with enthusiasm. There is a certain power in taking responsibility for our mistakes. When you know you're in the wrong, admitting it quickly disarms the other person. You take all the fight out of them. They were preparing for a battle, and by surrendering up front, you've removed their reason to attack. In fact, it often has the paradoxical effect of making the other person want to defend you. Admitting your mistakes builds trust, shows humility, and clears the air.
The power of a quick and emphatic apology is well supported by psychology. First, it disarms the opponent and diffuses conflict. When someone is preparing to criticize you, they are in a state of righteous indignation. By admitting your fault, you pull the rug out from under their argument. There is nothing left to fight. This act of vulnerability can often trigger an empathetic response. Second, it is a powerful trust-building signal. Leaders who admit their mistakes are seen as more trustworthy, humble, and self-aware. It shows you value integrity over ego. When you try to cover up a mistake, you force others to lose respect for you. By owning your errors, you demonstrate that you are accountable. Third, it provides emotional healing and a fresh start. Hiding a mistake creates a psychological burden of guilt and shame. Confessing a mistake, while difficult in the moment, is liberating. It clears your conscience and allows both you and the other party to move on.
Let's see this with a customer complaint. A customer is furious because you shipped their order incorrectly. You check and realize it was your mistake. The defensive approach is to argue, "Are you sure you didn't click the wrong button?" This only infuriates the customer more. The quick admission approach, the customer yells, and you quickly jump in. "You are absolutely right to be upset. I am so sorry. I see that I made a mistake. That is completely my fault." What can the customer say now? Their anger often dissipates. Their focus shifts from anger to resolution. Now you can say, "I am going to overnight the correct item to you, at no charge, for the trouble I've caused." You have likely turned a furious customer into a loyal one. When you make a mistake, use the apology formula. 1. Admit it quickly and clearly. "I was wrong. I made a mistake." 2. State what you've learned and how you'll fix it. An apology combined with a commitment to growth is a powerful tool for rebuilding trust.
This principle is about setting the tone, especially for a difficult conversation. Principle 13. Begin in a friendly way. As the saying goes, a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. If your heart is filled with bitterness, you can't persuade anyone. But if you approach them with genuine friendliness and warmth, you can often guide them to a more reasonable position. This is crucial in de-escalating conflict. Starting with a calm, respectful, and friendly tone can prevent a disagreement from ever becoming a fight.
The psychology here is about emotional contagion and setting a positive frame. First, it leverages emotional contagion and mirror neurons. We subconsciously mirror the emotional states of those around us. If you approach someone with hostility, they will likely mirror that response. But if you approach them with a calm, friendly demeanor, you are far more likely to get a calm and friendly response in return. Your emotional state is contagious. Second, it utilizes the primacy effect. This is a cognitive bias where we give more weight to the information we receive first. The beginning of a conversation sets the frame for everything that follows. If you start on a hostile note, they will interpret everything you say through that negative lens. A friendly start creates a positive frame. Third, a friendly opening is a powerful de-escalation technique. In tense situations, beginning with a statement of validation or empathy immediately lowers the emotional temperature.
Let's see this with an angry neighbor whose dog has been barking all night. The confrontational approach is to bang on the door and start yelling. This makes your neighbor defensive and escalates the situation into a shouting match. The friendly approach is to take a few deep breaths first. You knock politely and begin in a friendly, understanding tone. Hi, John. I know this is a bit awkward, and I'm sure you're not aware of it, but your dog seemed to be having a tough time last night. His barking kept me awake for a few hours. I just wanted to let you know. This approach shows empathy and assumes good intentions. John is far more likely to be apologetic and eager to find a solution because you haven't made him the enemy. So, before your next difficult conversation, script your opening line. Use the honeyed opening. Try an appreciation opener. Sarah, thank you for agreeing to chat. I've always appreciated how reasonable you are. Starting with a drop of honey will make the rest of the conversation go much more smoothly.
This is a subtle but powerful technique from the Socratic method. Principle 14. Get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Socrates would ask a series of questions his opponents had to agree with. He would keep winning one admission after another until they found themselves embracing a conclusion they would have rejected minutes earlier. Carnegie's principle is the same. When trying to persuade someone, don't start by discussing where you differ. Start by emphasizing the things on which you agree. Get the other person into an affirmative frame of mind. The more yes you can get at the outset, the more likely you are to guide their psychological process in a positive direction.
The yes, yes technique works by leveraging several psychological principles. First, it creates behavioral consistency and commitment. Once we take a stand or agree to something, we feel a strong internal pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. By getting someone to say yes to small, agreeable points, you are building a pathway of affirmation. It becomes psychologically harder for them to suddenly say no. Second, it avoids the negative psychological momentum of no. According to Professor Harry Overstreet, a no response is a difficult obstacle to overcome. When a person says no, their entire body gathers itself into a state of rejection. Conversely, when a person says yes, their body is in a forward-moving, open, accepting condition. A no is a defensive wall. A series of yes creates an open road. Third, it builds on the concept of principled negotiation. It establishes a collaborative frame, reminding both parties you are on the same team, which makes resolving differences much easier.
Let's see this in a sales negotiation. A client thinks your price is too high. The no path is to argue about the price. No, it's not. Our price reflects our value. The conversation is now a battle. The yes, yes path starts by finding common ground. You say, I understand budget is a major consideration. We all want to get the best possible value for our investment, right? The client says, yes, of course. That's the first yes. You continue, and your top priority is to increase your sales leads by 30% this year, right? Yes, absolutely. That's the second yes. And a solution that fails to meet that goal, even if it's cheaper, would ultimately be a waste of money, correct? Yes, that's true. That's the third yes. Great. So we agree the most important thing is the result. Let's set the price aside for a moment and talk about how our approach guarantees that result. You've shifted the conversation away from price by creating a yes momentum. To practice, prepare a yes set opener of 3 or 4 questions the other person is almost certain to agree with before you present your main idea.
Let's summarize this shift from conflict to collaboration with a quick roadmap. The ineffective, ego-driven approach has one goal: to win the argument. The effective approach's goal is to understand and find a solution.
The ineffective tactic is direct contradiction, like saying you're wrong. The effective tactic is to validate and inquire, like, that's an interesting perspective, tell me more.
Ineffective behavior is interrupting. You're just waiting to talk, not listening. Effective behavior is active listening, where you let them finish and then paraphrase.
An ineffective starting point is stating positions. I want X. An effective starting point is exploring interests. Help me understand why X is important to you.
And finally, an ineffective mindset is blame. This is your fault. The effective mindset is shared responsibility. How can we solve this?
If you find yourself on the left side of this roadmap, in an ego-driven argument, your task is to consciously shift your behavior to the right side.
That is the path from conflict to collaboration.
Now for a master-level extension of being a good listener. Principle 15. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. When we're trying to be persuasive, we feel an overwhelming urge to do all the talking. Carnegie says this is exactly the wrong approach. People know more about their own problems than you do. Let them tell you about them. Ask them questions and listen patiently. Even if you disagree, resist the temptation to interrupt. They won't pay attention to you while they still have a lot of their own ideas crying for expression. Listening intently is a strategic tool for gathering information and giving them ownership over the conversation.
The wisdom of this principle is backed by several psychological truths. First, it provides a powerful form of psychological release. When someone has a strong opinion, there's a buildup of psychological pressure. Allowing them to talk, to get it all out, provides a cathartic release. This process of venting can reduce their emotional intensity and make them more rational. Second, it is the ultimate information gathering strategy. While the other person is talking, you are learning. You are learning about their needs, their fears, their hidden objections, and their priorities. This information is gold. It allows you to tailor your persuasive message to their specific context. Third, it fosters a feeling of respect and importance. When you cede the floor and genuinely listen, you're non-verbally communicating that you value their thoughts more than your own. This is an incredibly powerful ego boost for the speaker. They are more likely to trust you because you have given them the gift of being truly heard.
Let's see this in a job interview. A candidate is asked, tell me about your leadership style. The talker, candidate, launches into a 10-minute monologue about their accomplishments. They dominate the conversation. The interviewer learns very little about whether they are a good fit. The listener, candidate, gives a brief summary and then immediately asks a question. But more importantly, I'd love to hear from you. What are the biggest leadership challenges this team is facing right now? The candidate then spends the next 10 minutes listening intently as the interviewer describes the company's issues. Now, the candidate can tailor their answers to directly address the company's actual needs. By letting the interviewer do the talking, the candidate has demonstrated their diagnostic skills, their focus on the company's needs, and their ability to listen. To practice this, monitor your question-to-statement ratio. Your goal should be to ask at least 2 questions for every 1 statement you make. You'll be amazed at how much more persuasive you become when you talk less and listen more.
This is one of the most sophisticated principles of influence. Principle 16. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. People have infinitely more faith in ideas they discover for themselves than in ideas handed to them. No one likes to feel they are being sold something or told what to do. We prefer to feel we are acting on our own ideas. Therefore, the wise persuader doesn't cram their ideas down other people's throats. Instead, they plant a seed. They ask questions, offer suggestions, and gently guide the other person's thinking until they arrive at the desired conclusion themselves. When the other person feels ownership over the idea, they will be far more committed to seeing it through.
This principle works by tapping into several deep-seated cognitive biases. First and foremost are the endowment effect and the IKEA effect. The endowment effect is our tendency to place a higher value on things we own. The IKEA effect is where we place a disproportionately high value on things we have partially created ourselves. When you let someone feel an idea is theirs, you are endowing them with ownership. It's no longer your idea, it's their idea. Because they feel they co-created it, they will value it more and be more committed. Second, it satisfies the fundamental need for autonomy and control. People have an innate desire to feel in control of their own decisions. The Socratic method of asking guiding questions preserves this feeling. The person feels they are arriving at the conclusion through their own reasoning. Third, it leverages the power of intrinsic motivation. When an idea feels like our own, we are intrinsically motivated to pursue it. It's not something we have to do, it's something we want to do.
Let's see a leader use this to foster innovation. A manager, Frank, has an idea for a new campaign. The "my idea" approach is to start the meeting by saying, "Okay, team, here's the plan." The team listens, but there is no energy. They feel no personal investment. The "their idea" approach starts with a series of questions. Team, our last campaign didn't generate much buzz. Where is our target demographic spending their time? Someone suggests TikTok. Frank asks more questions. Interesting. What kind of content performs best on TikTok? What would feel most authentic for our brand? By the end of the meeting, the team has fleshed out the core of the campaign. Frank then summarizes, "This is brilliant. So, the team's idea is to launch this user-generated contest. I love it. Let's run with it." The team is now energized because they feel they created it. Frank successfully planted the seed and let them grow the tree. To practice this, shift from making statements to asking guiding questions. Start with the problem, use "what if" and "how could we" questions, and build on their suggestions.
This principle is the bedrock of empathy. Principle 17. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Before you ask someone to consider your point of view, you must first make an honest effort to understand theirs. Remember, other people may be totally wrong, but they don't think so. Don't condemn them. Try to understand them. There is a reason why the other person thinks and acts as they do. Ferret out that reason, and you have the key to their actions. By putting yourself in their place, you can begin to understand the interests, needs, and motivations driving their position. This understanding is crucial for finding acceptable solutions.
This principle is about the deliberate practice of cognitive empathy or perspective taking. Psychologists distinguish between 2 types of empathy. Emotional empathy is when you feel with someone. You share their feelings. Cognitive empathy is when you understand what someone is thinking and why. It's the ability to intellectually grasp their perspective, even if you don't agree. Research shows cognitive empathy is often more effective for problem solving. It allows you to understand your counterpart's strategy and interests, which is key to finding mutual agreements. This process also helps overcome the fundamental attribution error. That's our tendency to attribute others' negative actions to their character, like he's lazy. But we attribute our own negative actions to the situation, like I was busy. By forcing yourself to see the situation from their perspective, you become more accurate and compassionate.
Let's look at the working from home debate. A manager, David, wants his team back in the office. His top performer, Emily, wants to remain remote. The my point of view approach leads to an impasse. David says, we need collaboration. Emily says, I'm more productive at home. In the their point of view approach, David first tries to honestly see things from Emily's perspective. He asks Emily, help me understand what makes working from home so effective for you. He learns her underlying interests are deep focus and work-life balance. Then, David shares his interests, mentoring junior staff and team cohesion. Now that they understand each other's interests, they can brainstorm a solution that meets both their needs. Perhaps Emily comes in 2 days a week for collaboration and works from home for 3 days of deep work. To practice this, use the perspective-taking pause. Before a disagreement, write down your interests and what you believe their interests are. This will fundamentally change your approach from adversarial to collaborative.
This principle is the emotional counterpart to the previous one. Principle 18. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. While the last principle was about understanding how a person thinks, this one is about acknowledging how a person feels. Sympathy means showing you recognize and respect their emotions, even if you don't agree with them. Carnegie suggests a magic phrase. I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I should undoubtedly feel just as you do. This can completely disarm a hostile person. It's 100% sincere because if you truly were that person, with their mind and experiences, you would feel exactly as they do. This validates their feelings, ends arguments, and creates goodwill.
This principle is about the power of emotional validation. Validation is acknowledging another person's internal experience, their feelings and emotions, as being understandable. It is one of the most powerful tools in communication. But here's the critical distinction. Validation does not mean agreement. You can validate someone's feeling of anger without agreeing that their anger is justified. You can say, I can see how incredibly frustrating that must have been for you, without saying, you were right to yell at him. When you validate someone, you are communicating, your feelings make sense. This de-escalates emotion. When people feel their emotions aren't being heard, they tend to escalate. Validation stops this cycle. It builds trust and rapport by showing you are willing to enter their emotional world without judgment. And it opens the door to problem solving by helping them move from an emotional space to a logical one.
Let's see this with a frustrated customer whose new laptop has stopped working. The unsympathetic approach is to respond robotically. What is the serial number? This ignores their emotional state and makes them more irate. The sympathetic approach uses genuine sympathy. The agent says, oh, that sounds incredibly frustrating. I can only imagine how upset I would be. I am so sorry you're going through this. The agent has not admitted fault, but they have completely validated the customer's feeling of frustration. The customer's anger will likely subside, and they will be much more willing to cooperate. To practice this, use the validation formula. First, name the emotion. It sounds like you're feeling incredibly frustrated. Second, justify the emotion from their perspective. And given what happened, I can completely understand why you would feel that way. This simple act of sympathy can transform a conversation.
Carnegie observed that people generally have 2 reasons for doing anything. A reason that sounds good and the real reason. We are all idealists at heart and like to think of motives that sound good. So, Principle 19 is appeal to the nobler motives. This means framing your request in a way that aligns with a person's higher values. Their sense of fairness, their honesty, their integrity. When you assume the other person is honorable and wants to do the right thing, you give them a fine reputation to live up to. They will often go to great lengths not to disappoint you.
Appealing to nobler motives is effective because it taps into our idealized self-image. We all have a mental picture of the kind of person we aspire to be: honest, fair, compassionate. When you appeal to these nobler motives, you are speaking directly to this idealized self. You are implicitly saying, "I see you as the kind of person who is fair and honorable." This creates a powerful psychological incentive for the person to act in accordance with that positive image. It's also related to the halo effect. When you attribute a noble motive to a person, you are casting a positive halo over them, which makes them want to live up to that perception. It's also a powerful way to avoid making someone defensive. If a customer won't pay a bill, you can assume they are a cheat, or you can assume they believe the bill is incorrect. By assuming the nobler motive, you open the door for a respectful conversation instead of an accusation.
Let's see this with a disputed bill. A customer is refusing to pay, claiming part of the service wasn't satisfactory. The base motive approach is to threaten collections. This is accusatory and leads to a fight. The noble motive approach appeals to their sense of fairness. You might say, "Mr. Jones, I know you are a man of your word and wouldn't dispute this unless you genuinely felt there was an issue. Could you please help me understand where we went wrong so I can make it right?" This approach assumes the customer is honest and gives them a fine reputation to live up to. The customer is now put in the position of being a fair and reasonable person and is more likely to work with you. To practice this, use the noble frame. Instead of, "You need to volunteer," try, "I know how much you care about our community, and I was hoping you'd lend your leadership skills." By appealing to the angels of their better nature, you can inspire people to act.
In today's world, simply stating a truth is not enough to get attention. Principle 20. Dramatize your ideas. To be effective, you need to use vivid, compelling, and memorable ways to present your ideas. This doesn't mean being theatrical or dishonest. It means using startling statistics, a powerful story, or a visual demonstration to cut through the noise. Dramatization makes your ideas more engaging, more persuasive, and more unforgettable.
Dramatization works because it engages more of the human brain. First, it harnesses the power of emotion and storytelling. Our brains are not wired to remember lists of facts, they are wired to remember stories. A story engages the emotional centers of the brain, making the information more memorable. You're not just transmitting data, you are creating an experience. Second, it leverages visual processing. A huge portion of our brain is dedicated to processing visual information. An idea that is seen is often understood more quickly and remembered longer than an idea that is only heard. Third, it creates a pattern interrupt that grabs attention. Our brains filter out the mundane and pay attention to the novel and unexpected. A dramatic presentation shocks the audience out of their complacency and forces them to pay attention.
Dramatization is all around us. Take a business proposal. The dry approach is a text-heavy document. It's informative but boring. The dramatized approach is a dynamic, visual document. It starts with a short video, includes powerful testimonials, and uses colorful charts and infographics. It doesn't just state your value, it dramatizes it. Or a public health campaign to encourage seatbelt use. The factual approach is to state a statistic. Seatbelts reduce your risk of fatal injury by 45%. This is true but abstract. The dramatized approach is a commercial showing a slow-motion crash test dummy flying through a windshield. The visual is visceral, shocking, and unforgettable. It's far more persuasive. So, next time you present an idea, use the show, don't just tell method. Ask yourself, what story can I tell? What visual can I use? How can I use a startling statistic? Dramatize your ideas, and people will not only listen, they will remember.
This last principle is about tapping into a powerful human motivator, the the love of the game. Principle 21. Throw down a challenge. Carnegie tells the story of steel mill manager Charles Schwab. He was struggling to get a shift to increase production. He didn't yell. He simply walked onto the factory floor and wrote the number of heats they had produced, a 6, in chalk on the floor. When the night shift came in, they saw the 6 and were determined to beat it. By morning, they had erased the 6 and written a big 7. Soon, that mill became the most productive in the company. Schwab didn't offer a prize. He simply threw down a challenge and stimulated the desire to excel. For high achievers, the chance to prove their worth is often more powerful than money alone.
Throwing down a challenge taps into our intrinsic motivations for mastery and achievement. The desire to improve our skills and overcome challenges is a fundamental human drive. A well-posed challenge gives people a clear goal and a way to measure their progress, which is inherently satisfying. It turns work into a game. This is different from fostering cutthroat competition. Competition can create negative side effects, like resentment. A challenge, on the other hand, is often framed as us against the problem or us against our own previous record. It can foster teamwork and a shared sense of purpose. A challenge also gives people a sense of purpose. It provides a clear answer to the question, why are we doing this? The purpose is to meet the challenge, to achieve the goal, to win the game. This can be incredibly energizing for a team.
Let's see how a leader can use this to motivate a complacent sales team. The nagging approach is to constantly tell them to work harder. This is demotivating. The challenge approach is to gather the team and say, "Folks, we're doing okay, but I know we can be great." Last quarter, the West Coast Division set a new company record. I believe we have more talent in this room than they do. I am throwing down a challenge. I believe we can beat their record this quarter. It's not going to be easy, but I have faith in this team's ability to do it.
By framing the goal as an exciting challenge, the leader taps into the team's competitive spirit and desire to prove themselves, creating far more motivation than simply asking for more work.